Good morning. All right, who's here? Hi, Sean. Right, so just been doing my wins with regards to how things look. So I've put a little bit more lighting on me. Hi, Graham. So I've put a little bit more lighting on me, well, at least evened it out. Got my backlight more in the back, separated me from the background. And I've got a little bit more colour going. Slightly tweaked the colours in the background. Well, just really the red, which is more of a pink. So I've pumped a little bit more of that out, so it's a bit brighter in the background. So I'm hoping that's looking a little bit, that tweak is a little bit better. It looks good here. I'm quite happy with that. And I'm not sure if I had the background blur on, so you get that extra depth of field. But I think it's looking, yeah, so that background's a bit more blurred, I think. Excellent. That's what I want. Fantastic looking. All right. Well, I'll wait for a few people to turn up. So what I'm going to try and do for the next foreseeable mornings, see how long I can go, is I'm going to try and... Hi, Chris. How you doing? I'll try and bring something of value rather than I meant to be doing my morning sessions, I know. But I'll try and bring something of value. Anything. So... actually, I think you're like that. Sean, you use XO, don't you? Is that right? So this is for XO users, but it's also for everybody. So what I did is I've built, modified a rack that sits XO in it, and that's in my template because I wanted the best of both worlds. Right. So what I've got is the best of both worlds here. So I've got XO sitting in an Ableton rack, okay, in a drum rack, with all of the pads mapped out onto a push or on your keyboard, and then on each individual drum rack channel, they've got their EQ on, and you could replace those with your Ableton EQ or whatever EQ you want to use. So you've got all of that side of it, but also the drum channels are also named on the MIDI map as well. So I'll show you all of this. So it's pretty cool. Because the thing is, when I was doing the breaks, I went back to using just the Ableton, just using like an individual simpler on each drum channel, which is like easy in one way in terms of arrangement, but harder in others. So I get a bit more of the best of both worlds with this, because the main thing for me with XO, right, is the fact that you've got access in one view to your entire drum library. And so the drum libraries now, with because they've got to like drum sample libraries, they've got to cater for a lot of different formats as well. So you end up with like tons and tons of folders, like clicking through lots of folders to get to the things that you want. So when it comes to like kind of casting the net wide, it's a lot more difficult. Especially like if you want to just do, maybe it's like a sample pack splurge, and you've got to go in, you've got to get the kicks, and then you've got to come back out like about 4 folders and then back in another 4 folders to get through all these file formats to get to the snares. It's like, it's too tiring to do for the rest of my life at the minute. So I've kind of, this is like one of my like template tweaks for speed and flexibility. That's what it's all about, isn't it? You know, because you get bored of the same sounds, but then when you're changing sounds up, how do you get that consistency? You know. So that's what I do, and then there's like, I mean, the stock EQ that I have in my template is always like, now it's like Pro Q3. All right, Des, how you doing? So that's on every channel. Well, I'll show everybody in a bit. So once I have my coffee. So I was just going, through the wins, problems and opportunities. So I've adjusted. One of them was like the focus. So I think the focus should be a lot better now. I just like shifted it over more to this side, because I like to lean against the table because I'm like lazy, you know. So that was one of them. Just doing a bit with the colours in the background was another. Getting a bit more lighting on me, and I think I've like kind of tweaked this as far as I can get it. I would have liked the blues to be more blue, but I can't seem to do that, so it doesn't really matter. It looks fine. It's good. That's the thing, tweaking to perfection. But I have a thing. I mean, I need to do something with that wall. That's a bit boring, and then maybe something behind me. Yeah, I've tried some LUTs. So this LUT that I've got on is, right, well, I'll tell you what, should we try some LUTs now? See which one you think is better, right? Because really, this is all about you guys, isn't it? The end user, because you've got to watch this. So this is the Utopia LUT, and this one is, these are the two, like, so it's a choice of 5, but, so there's the Utopia one, or there's neutral. Now I'll put the neutral on. This is the other LUT. Right, see what you think of that. So that's neutral. And then I'll go back to Utopia. Quite like the Utopia one. And that's Utopia. Yeah, it's good, isn't it? I'll have to get that out and play it. The hyperdrive. That's a wicked guitar though. Utopia for the win, that's what I thought you'd like. Yes. So there we go. Utopia, brilliant. Yeah, that was my gut instinct. I think it's pretty good. So, but add 5 to I mean, the other one is like tungsten and stuff like that, so it just makes me look a little bit more kind of yellow. So I think I'm probably about right with what we've got. Hair looks okay for the morning. Some Hendrixian psychedelia. I'll try and get that going with my drum machine, Gramps. I'll imagine what Hendrix would do if he had XO drums. Yeah, so that was like one of them, getting the colours is right, getting the focus right. And then guitar setup. So actually I've just been, it hasn't come through on the door yet, but I've just been MIDI mapping polychrome to my foot controller as well. So the idea on that'll be up and running tomorrow in the door. It's like on the standalone version it's working. So I've just MIDI mapped it. I was trying it in standalone last night just before I went to bed, and it was absolutely amazing. I was like a full-on guitar amp experience. It sort of gets weird, like when you know, because I'm so used to changing sounds and clicking, but then just having all of my presets just on one plugin, controlled off one floor foot pedal, is just absolutely unreal. and the ease of being able to change which patches I want on which pedal is just incredible once it's set up. So I was really loving that last night. That was brilliant. So that's going to be like every time I boot the thing up now, those presets will be there, which means like live, I only have to use one instance of that plugin. I mean, that's incredible. Maybe two if I have my guitar synth going, but I'm not sort of bothering with it at the minute. So that was absolutely wicked last night. Just unfortunately, I couldn't stay up and play all night because, well, not unfortunately, I have to be here to see you guys, which is amazing. So yeah, today we're gonna have a look at XO. And then what I thought I would do is we could maybe just have a little talk about conditions of success. So I think tomorrow, if I get my head fully round it, in fact, well, we could do a bit today. I'm not sure. Environment is a really important thing, isn't it? Actually, I think I might talk about that for a little bit. We can do a bit of stuff on environment. Yeah, I can do. I can't do it yet because like I'm on like the latest version, so I don't think I can show it. But I can do. When I do get it, I will demo it. Mm-hmm. In fact, anything, it's not. I mean, yeah. I mean, I'm sitting in here making music, and I like the creative process. But if people want to talk about guitar stuff, I'm pretty casual at the minute about that. Like the creativity and writing music for me, regardless of releasing or not, is like super important. And I'm like literally writing all of the time, every day, even outside of this stream at work. I'm writing all the time. That muscle is being exercised, and it's really important to do for me because, and I think it's important for anybody who's a creator really, is to create and make stuff and finish stuff all the time, especially the making bit, because it's keeping your mind engaged in the process. Yeah. So yeah, just but I'll check on that. Yeah, so everybody should be able to see that. Oh, that was the other thing I've got to get used to doing this, clicking things up. Yeah. Hi Zed, how you doing? So yeah, so we've got a few on. So yeah, I mean, we'll start with a bit about environment. I might continue it tomorrow if I haven't done a thorough job. But I was thinking about this in my week off because environment was definitely in the forefront of my head when I was kind of like ripping the studio up, even though it looks about the same. When the new camera came in, that was quite stressful because I knew I had to, well, for a start, you don't even know that it's going to work in this kind of space. I thought, like, how's the zoom going to fit? It's going to be capturing more of the room, which will look shit, right? But then it was like, just change it. Like, I thought, oh, I'll have to change gear around and all that kind of thing. So there was an environmental change. And it did get me thinking about my music environment. And also, I was talking about it to someone who I coach in their guitar lesson. And I suppose a bit of the environment kind of crosses into some sort of habits. But environment, having your studio, your place, it's really important to have it kind of right, really. So, I mean, for me, what I want to do is I don't want any barriers between me and the computer. You see, back in the day, I used to have everything that I bought was out in front of me with the hope of me using it. Okay. Interesting enough, I have broken the rule of this because I have got that quad cortex, I'm not really using it since the polychrome. It's just, you know, I was practicing on it and stuff like that, but like now it's just kind of there because I can't be asked to move it. Because I'm not sure what that gap will look like on here. But anyway, so environment is like an important thing for your workflow. So I remember back in the day, I used to have like loads of gear, like just out that I wasn't using, guitars I wasn't using, like loads. Because I mean, at the minute, right, in time, so I have a timeout box, right. So like now, just over the last few years, things I'm not using that I should sell really is I've got an OP1, right. I don't know if have you ever seen an OP1, anybody? They're amazing, but I never use it. So I bought an OP1 at like loads of money. I mean, they're about like $1,500 or something for one of these things, right? So OP1 desktop keyboard. It's got 9 synth engines in it. Great. I thought I'd do that. Absolutely like nightmare to use. Not very quick. Tried to use it. All right, you're just chilling. Plugged it in a few times. Got it on a few tracks. But it was just far too much hassle to use, so I ended up stopping using it, feeling bad about not using it, and then not wanting to sell it. And then now that's in the timeout box. Then, when sort of back in 2017, I decided so I was like wanting a really quick way to splurge and to be mobile splurging. So the OP1 wasn't going to do it because it's all about limitations, right? It's dead quirky. But the same company, Teenage Engineering, brought out the OPZ. So I thought that's the one. I'll get that because it's like, to me, it's a splurge machine. So I did lots of splurges on that. I mean, it was quite good. And then it was just too much hassle to get the splurges off the machine and into the computer and then work out how I was going to like finish a track. So that became too much hassle. So I don't use that. That's in the box. I'll have to get these out and show you them. And then what else did I get? Oh, then I got, because as you know, I'm a big fan of SH101s, right? Then Roland brought out the miniature SH101. I thought, that's for me. I'll use that. And this is when I was doing house music as well. I'll get that, right? And I'll just make tracks just using that. And I love the limitations of it, and it'll be amazing. Got that, plugged it in. Realized that it was an absolute pain in the arse to use, forced myself to use it, and then gave up, put it on a few tracks doing stupid effects to make myself feel better about buying it. And then that went in the timeout box as well. Then what else did I get? You see how bad I get? Then, so that timeout box got full, so I can't stick any more stuff in that. And then over in the cupboard there, I decided, right, okay, splurging. I need something even quicker. So I bought a machine. So I got a machine, and then that meant running like the machine software with the Ableton software, right, to get the full benefits of it. And I thought, now I'm learning another DAW, which I can't be asked to do, but come on, we'll try it. Then realised that was a complete pain in the arse, and like everything was just ending up in an Ableton rack, and it wasn't saving any time. And now I had 2 controllers in front of me and hardly any room. So that went back in the box, and then that went in the cupboard. So it went on a few times, and then various guitar pedals that have come in for like work improvement all ended up off the desk, and at some point that will as well. And it also ended up in the timeout box. So it all went up in the timeout box. Then I don't like selling anything, all right? But the missus is on to me. She's come in and done a bit of an audit, and she's like, oh, you got all this stuff. You're going to have to shift some of it. But the moral of the story is, all of this stuff that cost me extra time, all right, and any hassle and friction, okay, and friction being the important word, all ended up either in the cupboard or the timeout box. There we go. And I think the timeout box is like with the hope that I might actually get it out and use it again, but I don't really see that happening. So that's some of the friction things. And then you know, there's like things that we do that we don't realize that we're doing. So, you know, like I've got a keyboard here. This used to be too far away from me, right? And then I just, you know, you're going like that, kind of leaning over the thing or pulling the thing towards you every time you want to use it. You know, yeah, we do these things and we just like compensate for the hassle, you know. So things like that, just moving the thing forward. Wow, I can quickly do stuff now. Guitars. I used to have my guitar that side, twisting round, putting it on, right, hassle. So now I just have two on display that I'm not using, and then I've got the guitar that I do use here on this side. Much easier. Pedals are on the floor, just where I need them, you know. So it's just doing that, and then like when you look apart from that, we'll exclude that. Apart from that, like everything on the desk I'm using. Okay. So I've got the controller here, which you see me on all the time. I've got that for triggering pads when I'm doing live stuff. That actually might go in the timeout, but I quite like the look of it because, you know, we're going to have some lights on there. And that really is it. I mean, it's the keyboard. I've got a choice of the keyboard, and then like this for playing stuff in on Ableton, and then absolutely everything else is completely in the box. And then there's no, when I'm facing this way, there are no distractions. There's just what I need to be getting on with. And I know this is like blatantly obvious, but I do see like a lot of people, you know, getting frustrated with like the amount of stuff that they've got in the room and how it kind of, because the thing is what happens is when you've got all of this stuff that you're not using, especially if you think you should be using it, it does put a little bit of a cognitive load on you. And then we'll come into the template bit because that's the environment in the virtual world, which is like you know, super important, you know. But just reducing clutter for me. What's interesting is I when I was like really releasing like a lot of music, sort of my dance phase, and actually I'll have to find a photo of it. Because it's like utterly depressing, but it was like my favorite place in the world, right? The Riding Out was produced in a cupboard. I kid you not. It was like something out of it. It would be somebody else's nightmare. But the story was that when I was in 2014, I had my studio kind of set up like this, but it was actually, I always, you know, I was a bedroom producer. I never left the bedroom, right, in all those years that I've been making music. And we ended up in this like really nice house. And my other half, Sharon, became then obsessed with, you know, she used to be rock and roll. And then, I mean, she still is. But then she changed and she decided instead of rock and roll, now we're in a nice house, I like Victorian grandeur. Right now, the problem with Victorian grandeur, right, is that like people like me don't fit in with it. Yeah, in a cupboard. I'll get the photo. It's absolutely nuts. So I was basically, the first thing happened is like no guitars in the living room whatsoever, so they had to disappear. And then I bought like one of those. Look, what I tried to do is I went into the I went to see Thomas when he's in the shop, right? And then I was like, right, I've got this problem, Victorian grandeur, right? I need to get like, okay, I can't have a guitar in, but I can kind of bring a guitar in the living room, but I can't, like, I need an amp, right? I need an amp that's going to fit in with the Victorian grandeur. So he gave me one of those I bought one of those Yamaha THR amps that look like an old radio, and he was like, oh, this one even like glows like an old radio at the front. So I got that, and then I put that in the living room. She spotted that straight away. That was like kicked out, so that was a complete waste of money. Interesting enough, that's timeout. That's under there, because I don't even practice with that. That's under my studio settee. That wasn't not my cupboard. Sean, the Jakar video that was filmed at another studio that was properly set up. Instead of, you see, that's a proper commercial studio, isn't it? That's like there to look good, and you know they are ergonomically good to do stuff. But your personal studio where you are is just built around you, isn't it? It's about you. They are made of iron. I swear to God. Right. So yeah, so that ended up. So the amp ended up like well, it's in the timeout now, and then I never used it. So then what happened, everything was fine in the bedroom, but then I was thinking, right, so I've got my studio in the bedroom, and I had this quite nice IKEA table that it was on, and like all of my stuff out that I'm not using, and all that kind of stuff, but I need it all there because it's your trophies, you work hard for it, so even though you're not using it, you're just looking at all this shit that you're not using, because you don't want to move it, because then it looked like you're not doing something, and you want to feel like you're doing something, even though you're not doing something. This is the madness of it all. Right, because I was struggling to finish tracks. But, as I was kind of learning the process, I was there, and then I was like, we had this really big cupboard next to the bedroom, and I was like, right, Sharon, I just fancy trying out the cupboard, because when I was being coached, we were talking about being in isolation. So this is great, the studio is isolation. I'm in the basement of the house. I get up at 5 in the morning. There are no distractions. It's just, getting up in the morning and coming here or into my isolation cupboard in the day are like magical moments. There's no distractions from anybody, and this is another part of it. So there I was, sitting in the bedroom thinking about I could go in that cupboard, and I remember I took a photo of it and I sent it to Thomas. I went, I'm thinking about, and I was actually not thinking about putting speakers in it, right? Not headphones, and actually like having it in this room. And I sent him a picture of the room, and I went, I'm thinking about, the missus would like as well. I was like, I might try going in here and doing some music. What do you think? And he just went, you need a new missus. And I went, okay. And then, so then what I did is I went, right, well, she was like, well, just try it out. Okay, and I thought, I'll try it out. But if it doesn't work, you can come back here. And I went, yeah, well, I'll try it out because I'm quite keen on trying the isolation cupboard out. So off I went. I got all my gear out of the studio. Remember the Victorian grandeur, all right? So I was in the studio. I set everything up, and she was like, go on, you can try it out. It's all right. So then I went, I can do a music session now. Right? She went, yeah, you can go and do your music session. So I went in to try it out, and I was in there for a few hours, and actually it was really brilliant. I was in complete isolation, even though there was people in the house. Couldn't hear anything. I was in this cupboard that was, it was a biggish cupboard. I could get a keyboard here, and I had like a table a little bit more, but less than this. You could get everything on it. I didn't have any speakers. I was on headphones, and I got like some headphone correction software to flatten them out, and I was using Sennheisers then, the HD 650s, which were brilliant. But anyway, producing, and then I decided, right, okay, session's done. I feel like I'm out of flow. I wouldn't have noticed it. I would have known I was in flow or not. I would have just thought it was some magical, amazing moment. With the, I thought like being in flow was like a magical mystery moment helped by the pixies of Saturn, right? That's what had been in my head at the time. I wouldn't have thought about this scientifically at all. And then I went into the room, and then I just noticed my studio furniture was all in a pile. It had all been flattened out, ready, and she just went, I thought I thought you weren't coming back in here, so basically just while you were in there doing your session, I completely took a screwdriver, undid the studio table, and it's too late now. I've got a guy coming to pick it up. I've sold it. So that was it. There was no going back. So I was in my isolation cupboard. Luckily, it was absolutely a brilliant move, and I produced. I got played, the whole thing was there, and she went, you can't do it now. So this room, the room is going to be Victorian grandeur now. When we're talking Victorian grandeur, right, it was, right, Victorian grandeur is, and it looked good, the furniture was amazing, but you could just go to Miller's Sale Room, it's called, up the road from here, and it was all bought second hand, all this stuff. I had a bureau, there's a French sideboard, there's all this kind of stuff, and then ridiculously old paintings and stuff, and the flat it's in is actually, it's a Georgian building, it's amazing. But and that was it. So we got the Victorian grandeur going, and I was in a little isolation cupboard, which I'll try and find a photo of. But all the writing out was done in there, and all of I had a brief period where I actually went up to the living room at 5 in the morning, but then it was just a laptop and a keyboard. That's all I had. Because I was working out the minimal amount of gear I needed, and it was a laptop and a keyboard at the time. But then I got evicted from there eventually. And then I was permanently in this isolation cupboard. The interesting thing is the isolation cupboard was good because I was like there was nothing in there. There was just me. There was no distraction. There's only me and music, and that was a brilliant place to be. And of course, environmentally, I then, I got rid of the big computer I had. So I had one of those dustbin Macs because I thought I needed a massive fucking computer that did, and you don't. You just need a laptop. And the laptops have been great because it feels like an instrument. I don't really come out of the studio now to produce much. But back then I would do a lot of, back then I'd have a lot of jobs with my daughter who she would have been very young then. So I would take her to all of her, she'd be 6 or 7. I would take her to all of her things that she was doing. So there was like the ballet class. There was this thing called Explore Learning, which was, there's a supermarket, right, near me, and you could go there, and whilst you were doing your shopping, okay, you could put your kid in this room and they'd do extra maths and English. So she used to go in there like 3 times a week. So I'd stick her in there. And then there was a Starbucks cafe. So while she was in there for an hour, sometimes an hour and a half, I would go into Starbucks, and that was like a time limit, and I would have to do something in that time limit. So I'd do a session. I'd just take the laptop out, whip it open, plug the headphones in, quick as that, straight on, writing music. Loads of music was done in Starbucks. Loads of music was done sitting in the car outside of a tutor's, and a lot of music was actually done back then sitting in ballet class. So I was sitting with the parents, crushed in, waiting, and I was writing music. So everywhere I went, it actually ended up that it was my preferred method of producing, because the cool thing about that is there would be a session. She would be doing a session, and then that would be my session, and there would be a time limit. There would be a start and an end point, and that end point would be like me to get as much as I could done, because I knew there was an end, and so that was great, and I used to feel great, and all of that time, we're off environment now. We're on the time, which is but all of that time that I was getting, losing by not having a laptop, I got back. So suddenly I had all the time in the world when I thought I had no time to produce music. It was an amazing thing. And the environment I was sitting in, and the environment that I provided myself on the laptop. So the virtual, world is super important because you can take it anywhere. Went on a holiday to Germany to this amazing like hostel thing with a swimming pool and all this stuff, and I can't remember what it was called. I'll have to find out, but it was in Berlin, and it was totally inspiring. I did a whole track and a release, and it felt really good. I really felt like a kind of electronic producer being there in this hostel, because this hostel was all about art, and it had lots of commissioned artists there working on the building. So I had these amazing murals all over the place in this huge Berlin building thing, and it had a like swimming pool downstairs, which was like super hot. It was great. And I remember sitting there and finishing a track and sending off to 2 Dutch, and it being released while I was on holiday. It was brilliant. Really felt like a moment, that. So just having those moments where, an environment that makes you feel, like you're an artist is really important. Tell me if I'm rambling. Now, if anybody's got any environment questions, because that's what we're doing. Conditions of success. So then other things is your phone. So I don't want to sound like it being a nanny or anything like that, but for me, I noticed like all of the red dots on my phone was controlling my life. Okay, I was like, every time it would like beep and I would be looking at the thing, And that's just complete and utter distraction city, isn't it? So like all of my that was another thing. All of my notifications got switched off. I only have like the phone and messages, and that's it. I don't have anything to do with the outside world at any point unless I check, which is like super important. Right, everybody following so far. I know I probably ramble a bit, but I do think, you know, we tend to get very skill focused, me as well. In fact, I've been really skill focused lately. With hybrid picking, I've worn a hole through my finger. If I can see how good's that camera. Look at that. Look at the state of my fingers. I don't look after them. Yes. So let's have a look at the virtual environment. Boom. There we go. All right, I've never really seen this view properly. Let's have a look. What's it like with the camera? It's like trying to position myself so my head doesn't get cut off. I've always got to remember that. Right, okay. Oh. Right, so here we are. Right, now, let's have a bit of an overview here. All right, so I have, so you can see things better, like if I have this set up like the traditional kind of door. So there's been a few things that I've kind of tweaked. It's really weird because when I was doing coaching on the mastery program, we did this whole Beats plus 3 thing, right? Template, and this came, as you know, from that Beats plus 3. So in other words, all I started with was one drum machine, one bass, one kind of chordy mid-range instrument, and a lead instrument, and that's kind of how I roll. And then you kind of upgrade your template as you go along, based on the why, because you know how we're talking about the why. So this all comes from the why, and there's been a few times I've radically changed it, but then I always end up back at the same thing. So that's really interesting. So this must be it for the rest of my life, with a few minor tweaks. So one thing I have got in here is I don't know, for all you Ableton users there, if the stuff that I use and then I stop using it and I keep coming back to it, I have a rack. I have a group here, so you can group like lots of tracks and then you can hide them away. And I have this group called unused at the top. So all of the things I'm not using, like the shaker, the big clap toms, small crash impacts, vocal cut channel, noise fall, or I might use, but I just don't want to clutter all the time. Because remember, environment, right? We don't want to be seeing the things that we're not going to necessarily be using. We want to have a musical reason to use these things. All right. So all of those kind of channel strips and things that I made that were in the previous template that I don't use, that I may come back to using, are in this unused group track. And you just put them in the group track and then you switch it off. And that's it. And they're there to kind of grab out. And then all the stuff I am using is just left out. So there's like these crashes and the 808 shimmer, which I always have. That's that crash and that 808 shimmer is what I call a sonic signpost. It's one of those things that when you hear it, you know, sort of like Hutch has been doing something on this track. So, and then from there I have this filter channel. So the filter channel's like important, like all of the tracks, the whole track goes into this filter, and then all that is it's I have an EQ8, which is a high pass, low pass filter. The reason I use the EQ8 is because I like the 48 hertz, the 48 dB bump here, because it gives a nice bit of resonance and it sounds pretty good. It's like almost like a DJ filter kind of thing. So I tend to use that, and then I use the softer, I think that's either an 18 or a 12 dB slope there, which is just sounds smoother and more transparent. But that's what that is, and it's just really this is like a whole rack thing that you can switch on in automation. And what it does is, so it'll cut a bit of the high end off, loads of the low end, so you'll get that kind of lower, smaller bandwidth, lo-fi sound almost. And then I have this other utility which actually narrows the stereo image. And then I have a gain here which drops the volume. So it's all about creating contrast. If you're wanting a section of a song, you're lazy and you want to make a quick contrast between it and say the drop, and you want the drop to really hit hard, by just lowering the dB of all of the instruments just by 1.5, it's almost like you feel it, you don't really hear it. And by narrowing that stereo image, everything dimensionally gets bigger when the drop comes in. And then all I have some filters. So I've got the bass clef fade away, which is brilliant. I use that. I've got the hutch filter, which is just a high pass, low pass, and I've got washout, the hutch washout, and I've got the a volume. So the volume again is super handy. All it does is volume, fade in and fade out. So I'll talk a bit more about that as we go through the channels, because there's a reason why I have that there. But essentially, all it just means is I can fade things out without having to affect the master fader. So in other words, I can just do the automation on here. When it comes to fine tuning levels, you do that on the master and it's not affected by this. The automation isn't overriding the master, if that makes sense. Everybody following so far? All right, and then we'll have the mix bus. So the mix bus is very simple for me. All it is I use the Townhouse bus compressor. Those are my settings. All right, fairly light. Ratio of 2, attack 3, auto release. That's it. No makeup grain. Importantly, I have a sidechain filter, and that's set to 150 hertz. So the reason that's set to 150 hertz is because I don't want the kick drum or the sub of the bass triggering the compressing, because that's when you sort of get like pumping effect that you probably don't want. And then literally the way this is set up is this needle is hardly moving. It's kind of just like the audio, as David Pensardo would say, is just kind of kissing the needle. It's just slightly moving it, because what we want is just it's more of a harmonic coloration than anything else. But I do find that gives you a nice warm smooth sound. And then we've got Pro Q3, which is my preferred method of monoing the low end. So I just have one cut here at 37 hertz, so I'm just getting rid of all the shit that'll be taking up headroom, and then it goes into mid side, and on the sideband, again, it's just set to a 24 dB slope, and it's set to 130. Sometimes I have it set lower. A lot of the time I used to have it set much higher than this because I was really wanting all of the sub kind of cut out. But since kind of using respacers, which is like a wide stereo bass, and having listened to other sort of really high-end mixes, they do allow a little bit more. They're a bit more generous with the bass that's in stereo coming through. So have that there, and often I'll adjust that. But just for keeping things clean while I'm writing, it's keeping most of the stuff away from all the important things. So down here you've got living the sub of the bass in mono, you've got your kick drum in mono, and really that's it. I mean, this could come down low, to be fair, and then this is just really missing the fundamental of the snare. All right, so that's that. And then there's just my headphone thing, the VSX, which is just set to, so you're not hearing like the different rooms, because it would sound weird. It's just set to its flat setting. And then we've got a bit of metering going on. The cool thing about this is I can quickly mono or check in stereo. I can check left and right channels, that kind of thing there. So that's quite handy. And then we're on to XO. So this is kind of what I advertised on the stream. So this kind of rack setup, I'm going to, like this Ableton, I'm going to sell this. So if anybody's interested, it's just going to be like $10 or something for this. So if you don't fancy doing the work yourself, I can just send you this. But anyway, essentially, what I've got is a drum rack. when we look at XO, it's basically a drum machine, and these are your pads here. And we get, I haven't got anything on that one. And these are all different drums. So you get like 8 drum pads, yeah? I think I've got that filter on. Take that off. So I've got these firstly mapped to pads on here. And color coordinated and all of that kind of stuff. And then all I've got is just a couple of macros on each pad. So one is the pitch. So we can do pitch, and we can do release. Right, so that's the clap, right? So just release and pitch, which are probably the two things that I probably adjust the most. So they're macroed onto that, but you could expand on that, I suppose. And then, yeah, as I say, like everything's going into like a separate pad that's assigned over to the push, which is this thing here, or on the keyboard. So the next thing from there is just how everything's then wired in. So because it's on the drum rack now, I've got everything separated out onto different groups. Okay. So we've got basically we've got the kicks, and like on kick 1 I've got a smart EQ, because the thing about the smart EQ, it's AI, and I have this, it's not actually set up at the minute, but you can have a group, you can have like I think 5 or 6 of these EQs all working together as one group. So just when I'm kind of writing music to keep sort of things like tidy and separate, what I can do is I can just get the AI to like negate any kind of clashes between main instruments. So I find, yeah, 5, 6 of these like kind of does the job really. So the kick has one, a smart EQ on it, and the snare has one, and then there's one on the bass, and then there's like I've got a couple on some of the lead instruments, but that's it. So the kick has a smart EQ, and then everything else is just a Pro Q EQ. That's it. And then, so the advantage of this really is like XO, you could just go in and you could program on the piano roll, but because it's like on pads, I've got them named here, so I can clearly see, you know, what's going on here. So dead easy. Wonder where that's coming from. Yeah, so basically you can, you know, program all your drums straight into here. Okay, we'll do a little bit of that. I'll show you how to program a trap type beat in a bit. So yeah, and then the other thing I have is I have my favorite groove. So I really like the Logic swing. So, and it comes from my house days. So I either like 55 or the more subtle 52 because it works well with like 16th notes and it just takes the edge off the roboticness. So, you know, that's there. You just drag that onto the thing you want to groove and you're away. And you've got that, you know, very subtle kind of groove going. Okay. Just messing with the chat there. So that's really the kind of drums, but you've got the advantage of both worlds here. So the other thing you can do, obviously, is you can still program your drums as normal inside XO, which is here. So on this first channel, the drum machine's there, and you can just quickly go in and you know, work on getting all your sounds together there, and then programming a beat on here. So one of the things I like doing, like this XO plugin standalone. So sometimes I don't have to boot the door up at all, and if I'm bored or something like that, I'll quickly just get stuff up, and I'll quickly get this drum machine up and then start writing beats and stuff. So I've got them there as a starting point, and I can just like scroll through them, pick one I like, and then just write some music to it, you know. So when I talk about splurging, you can splurge just a bass line or a lead or some drums, you know. It doesn't have to be a full song all the time. A splurge is just the seed of an idea. Right, so there we go. That's the rack, but that's what it looks like. So, you know, you can have a go at building your own for those XO users there. But that's great for me. And then obviously you've got your mixer here. The other thing I've got on this is that actually on the drum rack itself, if I get to it, within the drum rack, you can have sends and returns, right? So technically, almost like a door in itself, you can put your reverbs and stuff actually within the drum rack, except I don't do that. You can create a chain and you can externally send it to your master auxiliaries over here. So I just send it to my main. So I've got my drums and ambient and plate and effects all over here, and the ones I'm using I'm just sending. So I've got like the drum reverb, which I believe is it's AMS, isn't it? Yeah, AMS. And then I've just got Valhalla Room doing my ambient. So that's what I've got there. Really, that is the drum. That's what I've done with XO. So that's like really handy. And again, it's this like idea that I have in my head of like just, you know, getting your splurges to sound good. A lot of this comes from wanting to do stuff and getting it sound finished very early on, but without actually having to do anything. And one of the secrets of doing this, and I'm sure you guys who are regular all know this. Anyway, we'll go down the template. I think it's easier for people to see it like this. So that's the drums. So you've got XO, and then all I've got is like loops that I cut up. So if I want like a live hi-hat or something like that, I can drop it in there. That's like MIDI, so I'll just chop the MIDI up. Loads of riding out the top line, the top half of drums on riding out. If I remember, I was going because I was really still in my house phase. I was really into kind of loops and chopping them up and re-scrambling, and my method of choice was using the Ableton Simpler, which automatically chops things up at the hit points and then kind of playing stuff in. It was one of my preferred methods. I've got Arcade, which I specifically use no hi-hats because it comes up with some interesting percussion. I've got and then I've got just so the ride symbol, which I like, which is just a belly sort of ride, which I keep chucking in everything. Again, it's like one of those subtle sonic signposts. that I use, crash, which is fairly standard. I've got an 808 shimmer, and then we're on to the bass. And then for the bass, this is where the sort of dynamic mixing idea comes in. So we've got a few things that are, I suppose, technically dynamic mixing. The first one is the fact that I'm using the Smart EQ on about 5 elements, the 5 main elements that I want the listener to hear, that I want to come across, have the Smart EQ on, and that's primarily to avoid clashes. So it's really good at kind of just subtly getting rid of the clashes. And you can just hit a button and it kind of does that, right? But apart from that, the dynamic side, and why I use dynamic is dynamic isn't necessarily key specific the way that I use it. So obviously, like if you're filtering low end on a kick drum, let's say, if you were filtering low end on a kick drum that was tuned to like say B2, your filter can cut a lot higher. To like kind of remove unwanted low end. The problem with that is though if you decide to then have a kick drum that's in G, that filter, you have to go back and change that filter, which is just like, and you might forget and then all that kind of thing, and then you're wondering why things sound a bit crap and the vibes like shitty in your song. And that's one of the reasons. So having been caught out with that, I thought of the other way, which is dynamic mixing. So I use Track Spacer. And the way Track Spacer is working is very simply, this is across all of the potential basses that I use. So SH101, Reese, and then I have a random thing, which I'll put a synth on that I can randomly use. And then that's strapped across absolutely everything. And then this is actually now wired to, I go through phases of this, XO kick drum. So it's just the kick drum that's coming through. I used to kind of do the whole kit and then filter it out, but like now I just have this set. So, and then the other thing is I've got like the high cut on here, so not all of the full bandwidth of the bass isn't being ducked, it's leaving like the high end. So this is especially important if you're doing a lot of synthwave stuff and you're wanting the attack of your 16th note or 8th note basses coming through and you don't want the whole thing pumping, then you want to do that so it leaves that alone, so you still get that nice sort of attack in the high end, but then everything that you don't want is kind of knocked out the way of that kick. So you had a lot of clarity with that. I mean, that really sorts things out. And then a very similar thing with the music channel. So the music channel is just like everything else, just gets dumped into there. So there's only the drums, bass, and like music, and then that's it really. And then just over the times I've been splurging, I've got the elements in that I like to use really. So I tend to like have some sort of fast plucky thing going. Obviously I'm going to have a lead synth, something for chords, something for atmosphere. There is a random thing there, so if I just want to kind of break the mold and look for things that are like unusual, I can do that. There's arcade for that kind of weirdness, wackiness if I want it. Got a high string, again that's something that I tend to use quite a lot. It's from sort of being influenced by John Carpenter's horror movies. I like that kind of sound, and also it used to be in a lot of my house music, and that's just like one of those sonic signposts that are subtle that I carry through. Used a lot, but not all the time. What's since doing that? It's a Fairlight. Wow. Imagine if I had the hardware version of that. I wouldn't be able to fit it in the cupboard when I didn't use it. Right, and then just like vocal cuts, very important to my style. And then we've got just background. So background's just sort of tuned ambient kind of noise things that I like to put in. Like, so if you haven't got an idea, sometimes just dragging something in there to play it to really, really helps. We have a noise here. So noise is just, I might add tape noise to something, I might add like Foley, like, I don't know, people in an airport or a restaurant or something like that. I'll stick that kind of stuff in there, which really is quite handy because it adds, well, you can use it like glue. So you can glue drums together with noise and what have you. And then I've got my guitar channel. Cthulhu, now this is just a MIDI plugin that allows you to do chords. So this is really good for if you're really shit at keyboards, of working out chord voicings and then being able to play them with one finger and come up with tunes like that way. So that's a really cool tool, Cthulhu. It's made by a guy called Steve Duda. I think he used to produce for Rob Zombie, but he works with like deadmau5 and stuff. And then just my mic channel. I think that's pretty much like everything there. So that's how it developed. But as I say, it was Beats plus 3, and I suppose like in a way when you kind of hide everything, the DNA of that is there, isn't it? You know, almost drums, bass, and then there's like, you know, in here I've got like synths and then vocals and stuff. So it's still roughly the bones of that. Okay. And there we go. Now, it's like working for the council list, so I'm going to have a coffee break. I haven't bored too many people. Oh, we've got a few people on still. So that's a bit about, because, you know, I want to share a few things these days. I want to be more active about that for the next sort of like little bit before I start ignoring everybody and panicking about my own like music career. So environment. So that is my environment in the computer. So what's important about that is, just to reiterate this, is that I didn't start with that, okay? It's back to what I was talking about yesterday. YouTube world, a lot of it's about the how. Not many people are talking about, people say like, you know, they'll build a template and they'll say, here's the techno template, and it's got literally every single thing that you need for techno in one place. And then you look at it, and this is where the cognitive load that I'm talking about, when you have too much stuff in your studio, you've got all these instruments, you're scrolling about, you haven't practiced using this template. So it's hard to find things. It's much, much easier to like start small and then quickly build it. Okay, so I'll explain exactly what the process is, right? Okay, and I can guarantee if you stick with this, right? Okay, and you run with this, you set it up today, and you report into me on Friday morning, or even better, a week later, you'll be amazed at the results that you get. Okay. So exactly how this process works is like this, right? And sometimes it's quite nice to do. I'll just do this as a refresher, you know, like sometimes I'll get sick of my template and then just completely, I'll do something else. But I always end up back to this. So it must be, for me, it must be right, because it's simply built upon my interest and the wins problems and opportunities that I experience in the process. So in other words, what we're going to do is we're going to have beats plus 3. So you can only have one drum machine. Like, don't think about EQs or anything like that. You're thinking about just your drum machine. Okay? We're not worrying about any future problems, just drums. Okay? So you've got a drummer. Think of it like a band. You've got your drummer, right? So that could be, if you're in Ableton, it could just be a drum rack. It could be like Addictive Drums 2. Don't even worry about like pumping it out and having it on every single separate audio channel and all that kind of stuff. Just drums. And then pick a bass. Now, what I would suggest is that you pick something that you can master quickly. So, you know, it's like there's only a few plugins that I know really well, to be honest. And, you know, you got to put your ego to one side, right? And you just want something that you can use like how it's supposed to be used, like an instrument. All right. If you have too many different instruments, okay, to make sounds on, it kind of, each time you have a new thing that you don't know how to use, it kind of halves the bandwidth that you have to become a master of that thing. Okay. So like if I make a track and I just use like say a Juno 106, and I use it for my bass, and I use it for my leads, and I use it for my mid-range instruments, all that kind of stuff, right? I stand much more chance of mastering that instrument because I'm just using that one thing, okay? And it becomes like second nature, all right? I mean, and often play with different various types of like the Juno and the SH101 because they're a similar architecture, and I find them dead easy. All right, I don't want any brownie points for being clever and lost in a synth. I just want something I can use that's quick, and I love the fact that those things have like sliders. Like, you know, if we look here. If I look at the Juno lead here, I mean, God, like, it can't, like, how much more simpler does it get? You know, you start with a preset you like, and that's it. And you've got these, like, you know, you've just got sliders. There's my EQ. So if it's too, you know, you can get rid of that there. You know, if I want kind of more of a short sound. So it's a wonderful thing, dead easy. Change the waveform. More of a hollow sound. So, you know, it gets you there. Dead easy to use, dead simple. And the reason that, you know, the other thing that you want to be thinking about of why to have these things like simple is, for me, the music making process is all about discovery, okay? So I'm never, at least I'm trying not to be looking at what I'm doing through the lens of a designer. So in other words, I'm like not going, okay, I have this idea and now I'm going to try and make it, okay? Because that's incredibly frustrating. I mean, I don't think, and I don't really know anybody who thinks of a sound in the electronic world or a guitar sound or anything like that and straight away instantly makes it, okay? It's incredibly frustrating. Also, you become focused in on this idea which doesn't externally exist yet. So it's kind of in the conscious world, and you've got all these expectations of meeting it. And because of that, you negate any other creative ideas that come in. So like something that was like kind of, you know, because remember this dance between the subconscious and the conscious, okay? And then something that exists in the real world, all right? You're negating all the good stuff and musical experiences that you've had in your life that are sitting in the subconscious, that are waiting to be inspired and released into the world, because you're thinking of this one thing and you just want to make that one thing. It's like the kick drum scenario with me. I'd be trying to find a kick drum at the beginning of a track that had to be the right kick drum. How would I know that that kick drum is the right kick drum for a track that I haven't made? It's utterly bizarre. So you're kind of trapped, I suppose, in this conscious world of design that doesn't even exist, and that half of it doesn't even exist in the world. And that's like a lot of problems that, you know, I've had to overcome myself, and I've seen other people overcoming. So we need to kind of flip the lenses around. So instead of design, okay, we're discovering, okay? So in other words, we're just like, you know, there's a sound. I'll use that, right? And I'll start an idea with that, and I'll use whatever drums are there. But after that, when you're adding other instruments, okay, there's this game, Splurge game, which is like loads of fun, called like the preset challenge Splurge, okay? And it's just, you just select any, you'll just go bass, select the first one on your list or wherever randomly and use that, and then select a lead sound. So when you're selecting your next sound, it may not fit, but what you've got to think about is this: how can I make this sound work with the music that already exists? Okay, and all of this stuff's the Victor Wooten like music lesson stuff, and he's got a new book at the minute, and this one thing keeps cropping up all of the time. I know it sounds a bit more spiritual and woo, right? But the music is that, isn't it? It's like music is a magical thing, right? That we can control. Well, we can't control it. It's self. We can respond to it, and this is one of the most effective ways of doing it: is discovering what the music is asking you to do. It's decoding that and then responding to it. So the tools that we want to do, that's why I pick this particular thing, because I like the sliders. I can see where the sliders are. There's very limited opportunities. Remember, through limitations, that's where the artist, I believe, exists, because you got something to push against. Being an artist is all about being given limitations and then pushing at those limitations, isn't it? And trying to break the rules. If you've got all of the, if you've got everything in the world, there's nothing to break, is there? So it's not as inspiring. So, but mainly so, if I want if I hear something and I think, right, okay, hi Danny, good. This is your creative espresso. So, what was I talking about? Oh yeah, it's Tuesday today, isn't it? Yeah. Yeah. So, in other words, simple synth, simple processing, to be able to get to the sound that you think the music wants. Okay, so we're looking through the design lens. I think the problem with that people have is, again, it's this thing of, oh, well, that's too easy, and we kind of come from a culture, I believe, where we think hard equals good and easy not good. But that's not, I can assure you, true. We can enjoy easy being good. So just using like simple tools. So the Juno 106, and again, just falling in with that kind of cognitive line. I go for SH 101s. Look at that. It's a thing of beauty. This is the soft tube one, which is great. So I've got this at the minute as my ARP, which is quite good. Sometimes I find it a little bit limiting, but again, with the limitations, it's a good thing. But this is like slightly kind of, it's only limiting because when I use it, I keep coming up with the same sound too often. Whereas on the bass, I have the tal. But again, like ergonomically speaking, So yeah, so I've got the tal SH101, which again, just like the Juno, it's it's similar sort of slider format. And then for the lead, I'm still kind of messing about with this. So this is the soft tube. I've been like listening to because I just thought, like, from my experience, because I've experienced the Juno 106 as a kid, and it feels, in the software world, very, very similar to that. I get that nostalgic feeling when I'm using that software, weirdly enough, which I don't with the Roland one, because they're like too modded up. I mean, this SH101 and the 106 are just like, it's the real thing. It's pretty much got all the limitations with very little modification, whereas the tal one is kind of modded up, but it's actually modded in a really good way that I do find quite essential. So Beats Plus 3, you've got your drums, you've got like one instrument that you're going to pick for bass, all right? So you can pick that instrument for bass, and then you go onto your lead instruments. So whatever that's going to be. I mean, if it's a band thing, it's easy, isn't it? A band is beats plus 3, a bass. So you've got your bass. It could be a live bass, or like, I don't know, like one of those like sampler bass things, what's it, like groove bass or something like that, which is really good. For your lead instruments, it could be lead guitar or some sort of guitar and another guitar doing your chords and the mid-range stuff, and that is it, because at the end of the day you're just making a seed of an idea. This is like the start when you splurge, and then all you do is you just write tons and tons of ideas really, really quickly using those instruments. You're literally just jamming with this band. All right, do tell me if I'm rambling. Okay, so we've got our beats plus 3, all right, drums, bass, 2 sort of other instruments, 1 being a lead. Could be your voice, whatever you fancy. Okay, we don't need to add anything more than that at this stage. And then the thing you need to do for this to work, right, is I suggest working within like a 10-15 minute time limit, timed. So just time yourself, experiment with this. You can go up to 30 minutes for your splurge, okay, but no longer. And what you're doing is you're just writing music and you're trying to be unjudgmental, okay? So like you literally are, you're just completely and utterly focused on quantity. In no way are you to focus or worry about quality at this stage. That's something you can do, and it won't be worrying either, like later on. But so try a 10-minute session, see what you can do. If that's, because you're trying to beat the clock, you're trying to, that's the shorter time limit, so you've got something to push against, because you want to be in flow. And one of the conditions of flow are sort of high consequences. So the consequence of not really getting to where you want to get, and then pushing against that is very useful. So 10-15 minutes for that. And I suppose if you're really in flow and you're not thinking about like quality judgments or repercussions later on, or having expectations that are taking you out of the process, just keep going for 30 minutes. But so that's your timed session. But then what you need to do is the wins, problems, and opportunities. Okay, and this is really, really important. So for wins, all right, because you'll probably find when you first start doing this, it's quite frustrating, or can be frustrating. You think, God, this is like crazy. I feel like I'm making utter crap. Okay, well, I can assure you what we're thinking in the moment is completely unreliable. Remember, music's fixed, we're not. Okay, so this might be it. You'll be working with limitations potentially. You'll not have necessarily all the tools. You'll have had to truncate things down quite a bit. You may feel a bit vulnerable, all right? But at the end of the day, what we're trying to do here, before we start going into problems, is make ourselves feel good about what we've actually done. Now, it doesn't matter, right? Even if you have the worst session in your world, there is always a win, okay? Don't ever say it's all rubbish, okay? Like, turning up and actually doing the thing is a win, all right? So you have to find a win. So when you've got your win, or wins, which I'm sure most people tend to have wins doing this, then we can look at what everybody likes to do, and that's the problems. It's really interesting with wins, because I can say to people, like quite often, I'll say, what were your wins? And immediately they launch into problems, because we're so problem focused as humans. So even if you ask somebody to do a win, they come out with a problem. So it's just being able to like resist that urge of putting your problems first, because what we don't want to do is you don't want to start beating yourself up. So we do a win, and immediately when you do your win, you're much more open to the kind of learning aspect of what's going to happen. Problems are absolutely everything. So everybody who starts doing this process, everybody who I coach, right, part of that, and it's mandatory, is that you start loving your problems, okay? Because we're simply just, this is a process of exchanging shit problems for much better problems. As I always say, if you had £1 million, okay, that would be a good problem, wouldn't it? But it still would be a problem. And also, in life, we're always going to have problems. When we're dead, that's when the problems stop. Okay, but up to that moment, we're going to have problems. So, what's great about problems is when you overcome a problem, all right, you create new knowledge, all right, and this is like pretty much the words coming out of the physicist David Deutsch. Okay, so he's like a philosopher physicist, right? And when I was on the mastery program, that inspired a lot of this kind of stuff. So as I always say, as coaches, we always used to say, what's your challenge? Because like if you say, instead of a problem, you say a challenge, it kind of softens things and you can work around it. But a problem is we're going to hit it head on and we're going to try and work out how to kind of overcome this problem. So once you've identified what the problems are, you come to your opportunities. And then the opportunities are, you just think, of as many ways, right, of how you can tackle that problem, okay, with your resources. And when you do those, when you come up with those solutions at that point, okay, that's when you can start looking at the how, all right? Because with the problems, we now have a why, okay? And now it can start, it's a problem, it exists, it's in your process, it's personally to do with you and what you've experienced in your music making, okay? Not some random watching a YouTube channel and then thinking, oh, I better do that in case I have that problem. No, you've got your problem and now you're going to fix it. So, and that might mean going to YouTube and actually, searching for that thing, but at least you've got something very, very specific that you can find, and you can find maybe somebody, if you don't know yourself, that has that solution that may work, and then you can try it out. So it gives you something to, try and solve, or you can try and think of various ways to solve it yourself. So wins, problems, and opportunities. So after every session you do your wins, problems, and opportunities. So after I do a live, I do wins, problems, opportunities. And I think, I've tied sort of this in with the environment kind of thing, because it means like those of you who are really keen to kind of get started now, you've got something, you've got your Beats Plus 3, you've got an idea of what your external environment could be, and you've got an idea of what the software environment could be. And I think that's, the best possible start that you can have. And I think like, well, I don't think, I know that if people who are on here or listening who are struggling with the creative process, this is the best way to start, just by starting small. If you're doing your wins, problems, and opportunities, and you're solving problems every time, like you're solving these problems after every session that you do, okay, you're going to quickly, that template's going to quickly develop. In fact, don't think of it like a template, think of it like a band. So you might go, and your wins, problems, opportunities, you go, right, the bass player could do with some distortion, and then you can upgrade that channel in your template by adding a distortion. You could just say, well, I like the snare drum, but it's too flabby. Well, you could put an EQ on that snare drum. If you're going to stick with it, then you can shelve that off. And then suddenly your template starts sounding really, really good for the music that you're making. You can then start going, well, to clear the mix up, I can use a bit of dynamic EQ. So you could do that. You could think, right, well, I need to use an arpeggiator on my lead synth. So you can have an arpeggiator installed. And you can see how each of these players, band members in the virtual world, become more and more developed. But it's developed around your creative need. That's all I'm saying. So I know, again, today has been a bit of a talky one, but I'm quite into the talky stuff at the minute. And I haven't done, actually, one of my problems was not splurging. So I better do one, actually, at some point this morning. So I hope that makes sense, everybody. And I hope I haven't bored everybody to death by ranting on. And then anybody who's interested in joining a coaching group, my email is in the description on both YouTube and Twitch. Now, Twitch malfunctioned about this time yesterday, and all the people who were on Twitch kind of lost their connection because there was an error. Not sure why. Probably because I'm being a naughty boy and dual streaming. So I think I am streaming on Twitch, but I do think like YouTube may be my preferred platform. So anybody who's on Twitch now, just to like doubly make sure you don't miss out on any of these lives. I'm going to still stream on Twitch as well as YouTube. But what I would do just in case is just if you can subscribe to my YouTube channel, that would be great as well, because I do need to build that up. And actually, one of my things is I've been tweaking the camera so I can quickly just tilt it one way, and I can do those long, what do you call them? Vertical guitar shred videos. So there's going to be some of those. I'm going to experiment with those a little bit at some point on YouTube. It's like one of the things I'm wanting to do, as I do play guitar. Just check the chat. Oh, not boring at all, Sean. Great, you're here. You're here. Brilliant. I'm sure everybody else is here. Now, I think if you've got questions, I'd love to hear somebody talking about questions. Or if you're watching and you're lurking and you'd like to say hello, say hello. But anything you want to like ask, or if you want to just comment and say, Hutch, you're mad. You can call me Tim if you want. Then do so. Otherwise, I'm just have my coffee. So as I say, because I need to promote the business, don't I? Coaching. If you're interested in this is just like the focus. This is the very beginning of the process. And it's kind of really good doing this on these lives because it's allowing me to think about the things that I'm wanting to add into my coaching groups and potentially create another what I consider to be a mastery kind of thing. So you kind of, it's really sorting my thought process out as I think about, environment. Both in the physical and digital world. And we've even kind of got onto like kind of a splurge setup. But I'm not going to give all of the game away. Believe you me, it's only the tip of the iceberg. Oh, the other thing I do, right? So I've been trained, right, to do, I don't know if I mentioned this. Lecture style is good, yeah. So anybody who's really interested, right, and wants a creative rocket put up their ass, right? I do, like, you can do a one-to-one coaching session with me. They last about an hour. And I'm trained to do this, like, non-directive coaching. In other words, I'm only going to ask you questions based on the information that you tell me, right? But what I will do is I'll show you something, a problem that you need to fix, and then I'll help you kind of fix that problem. Or at least I'll help you through more questioning. So the coaching model I use is Thinking Environment, and it's by a lady called Nancy Klein. And the Thinking Environment's just like a brilliant kind of coaching model to use, and I can use it actually in like really short bursts, like 10-minute coaching session. But as I say, it's just, I only ask questions. And I kind of like a while ago, I did like experiment a little bit, actually on the chat to seeing if I could do that. So, I mean, we could even see if it works on the chat. But actually, if you want the full-on hardcore, like, I've got these problems, don't know what I'm doing, I need some like concrete thing to try to get me making music because it's really frustrating. Can't finish anything. Don't know what I'm going to do. Want to have a music career, but don't even know where to start with it. Then like this is a great thing. And the guy who coaches me, he uses it on all of his top clients. This thing that tends to be like what they use. And it's, as I say, it's like my kind of, if we're going into non-directive, which means I'm not going to give you information, right? I'm only going to ask questions. Then it's the tool of choice, and it's really it's taken. I must admit, it's taken a lot of hours of training to do, because I've been in groups and I've been coached, and then we've been coaching each other, and it's gone back and forward for like I'll have to work out how many hours I've trained on it, because we were even getting a bit like flying an aeroplane. You had to have so many hours. But I'm tooled up with it now, so you're safe. So Graham says the lecture style. The lecture style is good. That's good, but it's a lecture, so that's yeah. It could be a lecture, couldn't it? Very well. Maybe it's. I haven't really structured this, to be fair. I kind of rely on audience feedback a little bit, I think. But I suppose it's good. I can, when I'm up for it, I can ramble. It's just I can't, like, I really struggle with like funny stories and stuff like that, because I think I think my life's very serious, to be honest. I have when I'm making music, right? It's like I'm in a clinical hospital environment, aren't I? It's like it's a serious like thing to do. I mean, I can't think of anything more serious you can do with music, really. Which is why I do it, because you've got you've got to have your wits behind you, and it is. It's like the job I have. It's like when I read I wish people have got to read these Victor Wooten books. You've got to read the music lesson, because that's my life. That's what it's like. And like I see the things that happen in that book, I kind of to a point see. But anyway, what was I thinking about? I was having my coffee, wasn't I? Yeah, so there's like the one-to-one non-directive, one-to-one directive coaching. There's the coaching groups as well for people to join. So if you like what you're hearing here and you want to join a group, okay, I'll tell you how much it costs. It only costs $200 a month to be in a group. And every week, it's a group of 4. And every week, you get the coaching groups are like 2 hours long, thereabouts. Sometimes it goes a little bit under, sometimes it goes over, but generally we're aiming for 2 hours. So $200, absolute bargain, gets you 2 hours every week in a group, making music. And when the way it's structured is we do our wins, problems, and opportunities at the beginning of the session. And then what we do is I'll take you through an exercise, game, don't say exercise. I'll take you through a game. So everybody's nobody hears each other's music. It's coaching, right? So there's no differentiation. You're not going to be sat in a class and I'm not going to go like, say, Sean, play me your composition that you've just made in 2 minutes that I've told you to do, and then play a load of like nonsense to everybody. It's not like that, okay? In fact, there's no such thing as musical nonsense to me. It wouldn't be like that. You're not going to be humiliating your group. Basically, the only person you're in competition with is yourself. So I don't hear that. It's just simply, I'll take you through an exercise, right? And then that exercise will show you something, a problem is something that you can then work on. And then we talk about kind of solving it, really, by doing wins, problems, and opportunities at the end. So that's how it works. So anybody who you're wanting to release music, then this way is brilliant, because what I do is you're not on your own. You're with a group of other people, and we're all doing the walk. Rockstar camp, potentially. I don't do anything on hair or image, which I think you would need for a true rock star camp. Oh God, what was I saying? My brain's frying now. Yeah, so the great thing about it is, you might be one of those people and you desperately want to release music. It might be that you used to release a lot of music and you've kind of lost your way. So, this is perfect because what will happen is I will, and with a group of people, do the walk from your very beginning, developing your unique style all the way through. And there's some great examples of people who have done this with me, who release music. You know who you are. I could name you, couldn't I? But Zed, who's I'm sure doesn't mind me mentioning him, Zed has done this coaching, and he is massively prolific, and you should check his music out because it's quite incredible what he has achieved. He literally is he's a machine, that guy. And the great thing about it is, our music, he's a testament to, like, the more music you release, the more data you get back on it because of those releases, the more problems you get, and the more opportunities that you get, both in the world of music and in your own music. His music is constantly developing, he's constantly improving, and that's how a true artist is. We're never designing at the beginning, we're never going to make the best music to start off with. Our music is only a diary entry, and as we go through and we develop as humans and as musicians, as artists, it gets better and better and better, because our path in all of this is one of mastery, not one of like a craftsperson where we're making like an object and it's got to be perfect. And there's no such thing as perfection anyway, because for something to be perfect, we would all have to agree in the entire world that that particular thing is perfect. And I think that is almost impossible to achieve. So Sean has done it as well, and obviously Sean has got an amazing release out at the minute. So there's another person who's done it. So there's a couple of people there, and again, it's just with me, I don't mind saying, I wrote music, I wrote albums, I was prolific in my younger years. Life gets in the way of you being an adult, and you get ground down, don't you? And I was desperately for years couldn't figure out what was wrong with me, and then I got coached, and then poof, back again, except none of it is this kind of like weird woohoo, everything seems to work for like no reason today, but I'll enjoy being an artist, and then suddenly, oh, why am I all like, why have I lost it? I don't have any of those, nor do I believe in the kind of, I'm not in the mood, I've got to be in the zone, I try and look at the process as scientifically as I possibly can, and that's massively kind of helped me. Saying that, there are the things and the mysterious kind of spiritual side of music I enjoy much, much more than I ever did when I was like waiting for this kind of magical inspiration golden zone that some people say. And as I said yesterday, I do know that some artists are like, it's got to be painful. Well, it's okay for a bit of pain, right? But that doesn't mean it's good. All right? It just means you've suffered. That's all. And, people then will, enjoy it a bit more. And sometimes you do have to suffer. But how much of that suffering can a coach take away so you can actually focus in on the things that are worth suffering for? That's the point. There'll never be pain-free. There's always pain. Me getting up this morning and sitting here and switching everything on was painful. I wasn't in the zone. I'm never in the zone getting up in the morning. I get excited at night. Oh, I can't wait to do it. When I actually wake up, I think, why am I waking up? Why am I doing this? There's that kind of doubt. I'm human like everybody else. But yet, I do hold myself accountable as much as I can, and I know you guys are going to be here. So I get up and do it, and I sit here. I didn't really know what I was going to talk about last night. I didn't even know what I was going to talk about. I was going to show you like XO. And then suddenly I've gone into environment, and that's led on to like all kinds of things. All right. So there we have it. So I'm going to sign off for today. I will get back to making music, but I do think it's important talking about the conditions of success at the minute. So I hope you all enjoyed that. And as I say, anybody who's interested in coaching, email is in the description on the Twitch channel and on YouTube. But I've got more time for my coaching now, you see, and like other things. There's been a little bit of a shift. So I've got time freeing up, so I want to fill that up with stuff like this. And of course, if you ever want a guitar lesson, although I'm quite busy, that's also a possibility. If there's something specific you want to know about that I do, that can be done as well. But the coaching group is $200. $200 a month, and whether it's a 5-week month or not, it doesn't matter. You just you do 5 sessions with me. Gramps, feels like I come up with an epic melody, then... Alright, hold on. Feels like I come up with an epic melody, then it's all worth it. Otherwise, I close up. How do you know it's an epic... How do you know it's an epic melody? And at what point, Gramps, do you realise that it's an epic melody? And does it stay epic for the rest of your life? So these are some questions you've got to ask, because to me, I mean, I'm just reading between the lines on this. That feels like somebody splurging and going, this is amazing, this is epic, and then thinking about all the future possibilities that could happen. But again, it's that very sort of in the moment thinking. And that can lead to like expectations. I can hear it in my head, fair enough. So hopefully, Gramps, it's got to come out of your head and onto an instrument and onto something. Because what I want to know is like what's happening with that melody. Now you're conscious of it. How does it manifest itself in the world? And then when you listen back to it in 7 days' time, which is what I recommend. Oh, that's the other thing. When you're splurging, 7 days. When you're new to it, 3 days is minimum. Don't listen. But then what happens when you listen back to that melody in 3 to 7 days? That's the thing to be thinking about. All right, then. So that's me done for today. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Tomorrow, I'm going to be looking at, we've done environment. Tomorrow, I'm going to be doing habits. All right. So tomorrow is all about habits. And what we're going to be talking about is obviously, because, we'll be talking about bad habits. Okay. As much as we can. Not disgusting habits, but bad habits in the musical context. We're also going to have a look. I'm going to tell you all about how to install good habits. So this is going to go across the board in your music making practice, sitting on a computer, typing away, to playing your instruments habits. That's what we're going to talk about tomorrow. So I'll see you for habits. And if I don't talk for too long, you'll actually see me make some music. Probably badly. Oh shit, no, it's Wednesday tomorrow. No, that's correct. Graham, you're right. Thursday is going to be about habits. Wednesday, there's no stream tomorrow because I've got my coaching group, right? So Thursday, thank you, Graham, is going to be that. All right. Thank you, everybody, and I'll see you Thursday for habits. Bye.